But there are other states, in fact, a number of states that they are still opposed to the LGBTQ law. So that's another one that we should also consider. But the fundamental issue here, which the likes of those who are opposed to it, call them the big 18 CSOs, is why criminalize someone's sexual orientation. What is the position of the law on this particular issue? And the lack of consultation is one that the likes of Professor H. Kwesi Pempe raises. Now, Okudzeto Ablakwa, why did you not, in the words of Professor H. Kwesi Pempe, give extensive consideration to consultation during this process of even engagement on this bill in Parliament, knowing the severe implications, in his words, of this bill before even passing it?
I would have to be very honest with you that throughout my life in Parliament, and I'm in my third term now, 12 years in Parliament almost, I have never seen a piece of legislation that has had this extensive consultation. At the last count, more than 100 groups.
100 groups
have been consulted, have been engaged.
Including?
Across CSOs, SHRAJ. This is one bill that I even saw international organizations come to Parliament. UN agencies, AU, ECOWAS, international NGOs, all making inputs, submitting memos. I recall that there was a point where the Right Honourable Speaker even criticized the committee that they were keeping too long with their consultations and going on and on, that really how far do you want to go with consultations? Won't it have a certain termination? Because he remembered that, interestingly, our last two speakers have made this a legacy project. So Professor Aaron Michael Okwe was very passionate about this. And then the current speaker, the Right Honourable Alban Sumana Kingsford Badbin. I mean, if there's any matter that we've had speakers, agree on, and they've been so ad idem and so passionate about it, about making sure that this becomes a legacy, it is this piece of legislation. And it's received extensive consultation. I'm not aware that Parliament restricted the levels of consultation or prevented anybody from submitting memos or from engaging Parliament as an institution. So we have to clarify that. Now, I want to go back to the background. Many people forget that, but for the pressures from this same international community that is today talking down at our leaders, seeking to intimidate, seeking to threaten, seeking to meddle in domestic affairs, which all of us must frown against because it is not acceptable in international diplomacy. And I know what I'm talking about as a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm glad that my chairman is here. You don't meddle in the domestic affairs of the host country where you have your embassy or your high commission in such, a very glaring and offensive manner. As you will recall, first, the Australian High Commissioner to Ghana. You remember, he went around openly advocating, commissioning offices, advocacy centers for LGBTQ. When it came to our attention, we invited the Honorable Foreign Minister. She said she had no idea. She had not been informed about those events. She didn't know about the commissioning. Nobody knew about it. Outright provocation. I mean, before even this piece of legislation, our laws have been clear on natural canon knowledge. Our value systems, we are clear. I mean, we are a very conservative society. And every country you go to as a diplomat, you must respect their laws, respect their value systems, respect their practices. I cannot imagine. Look, recently, Morocco refused a Western diplomat's accreditation because it was revealed when he submitted his credentials, the agreement. You must provide your profile. It emerged that he's married to a man. He's the practitioner of this LGBTQ. They had the right. They stopped the person. Saudi Arabia has done that. And there are a number of countries. I didn't hear all this hue and cry and all of these threats. They quietly withdrew the nomination. So we must go back to basics. So first, there was that provocation by the Australian High Commissioner, who really stirred the honestness. I'm sure that we were willing to let sleeping dogs lie. I mean, we've seen all of these symptoms every now and then, and we haven't bothered much really as a country about what people decide to do in their bedrooms. But it's that provocation, one. Then number two, you recall that sometime in 2019, we woke up one morning and saw all of this literature from UNESCO about comprehensive sexuality education in our schools. You recall? Many
Which
people.
you opposed.
Yes. I spoke publicly and openly and even made submissions on the floor of Parliament. That was going on here. We summoned the Ministry of Education, the GES, and they told us that they had not approved that curriculum.
So how did it get there?
That's the question. How did they get there? And if you look at some of the content in that publication, they listed families, types of families, and they were going to teach young kids. The books were already in the schools, in primary school, that we have same-sex family, that we don't have only two sexes. There are more than 20 sexes, and you can even decide that you are fluid and you are still assessing who you are and all of that. You are not male, you are not female. Very, strange content. Took us by surprise. So it is these things that served as trigger. How we were being undermined, our sovereignty, our values, and suddenly you wake up and there's all of this advocacy led by the Australian High Commissioner, and then you have this comprehensive sexuality education that found its way in our schools. We felt we were under siege, under attack. I mean, our sovereignty didn't matter, our laws didn't matter, our values didn't matter. That is what triggered colleagues to put together this private members bill. So we need to go back to how this occurred. Now let me come to the current provocation. Look, to be very honest with you, Alfred, I am totally appalled and disgusted by the attempt to link money. I have here the IMF agreement approved May 17, 2023.
Which we're going to get into.
$3 billion. And you have our Ministry of Finance also putting out what we could potentially lose, 3.8. I asked a question.
3.8 billion.
$3.8 billion. I asked a question. How much money is more important than us as a people? The respect for us. Let us be allowed to fashion out our own value systems, our own traditions.
But how far?
How much money are we willing to take to sacrifice our values, to sacrifice our identity, to sacrifice who we are? Look, I hate with a passion any attempt by any outsider to use money. Look, if we were managing our affairs properly,
yes.
if we had good leadership,
yes.
Look, this country is not poor. We don't need, look at these sums because of $3 billion. I mean, how much is $3 billion? If you look at some projects that we have done, a few days ago, I was, up in arms against the National Cathedral project and all the wastage with that. If we manage our resources properly, look at how many Western countries have the natural resources we have. From gold to oil to diamond to bauxite to timber. And you want to come and dictate to us. And how come we don't see this level of dictatorship and diplomatic arrogance in other jurisdictions?
Well,
we don't see that in Saudi Arabia, for example.
But have you not invited this onto yourself?
Yes.
If you say you are comparing yourself with Saudi Arabia, that is self-sufficient financially. They are not going around cup in hand begging like what you are doing.
Exactly. Good. So Alfred, we are on the same page.
Continuously pushing sovereignty.
So Alfred, we are on the same page. We are making the same point. We are on the same page. Look, if it's about human rights lectures, lectures on human rights. The last time I told a few diplomats who raised this matter for discussion, and I told them that, look, the biggest threat to human rights now, as we speak, is not this Ghanaian piece of legislation. It's the genocide going on in Palestine. What are they doing about it? Over 30,000 people have been killed. Look, I can't even watch international news these days. When you see babies, innocent, harmless, unarmed women in hospital. People are being bombed, are being slaughtered. Look, I condemn what those terrorists did in Israel on the 7th of October. I condemn that. And my position is that identify the terrorists,